Good morning. Today's verse is Matthew 6:12, and it reads, "And forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors." So today what I want us to think about is, what does it mean to forgive and what is a debt? In my mind, to forgive is to let something go. It is to release it. It is to not hold on to it or to be angry about something, but to let it go. And debt is something that you are owed or something that you owe. So if I have a debt, I owe money to someone. I often think about debt as money, but debt could be anything. It could be that I owe someone a thank you card. It could be that I owe time on my job. It could be that I owe an apology. It could be that I owe a phone call to a friend who's called me. So those are the two sort of major terms of the verses that we're going to be looking at today. So I want to start with this story that I read in the Washington Post recently, and it was about a woman who got sick, and so she got so sick that she couldn't keep her job. When she lost her job, she didn't have any money, and so she couldn't pay her bills. She lost her home. She had to move in with family members, and she was not working, and so she really was just dependent upon her family to help her. And then she was very worried about being able to pay the doctors back and to pay the hospital back for the services that they had rendered her as a sick patient, but she couldn't pay it back because she wasn't bringing any money in. And then one day she got a letter and she read the letter and it said all of her debts, hospital debts, doctor's bill had been covered. There was a group that had paid her debt off. And for her, it was a jubilee. So I want to talk about the word jubilee. Jubilee is biblical. It comes from the book of Leviticus, and it is a time where people are forgiven of their debt, slaves are freed, people who owe service to somebody are allowed to be forgiven of those particular services. It is a year where people depended on God to provide for them. And so it wasn't like you had to work to be able uh, to provide for yourself. You weren't supposed to harvest because God was there to take care of you. And so to receive Jubilee is amazing. And I think if I think about it, I receive a Jubilee every day because I'm not owed life, but I'm given life every morning that I wake up. I'm given Jubilees in terms of the love that I have for my family and my friends. I'm given Jubilee in terms of the fact that I still have the ability to walk and to see and to hear and smell and taste, that I'm still healthy. So Jubilee is just the blessing that we receive, the freedom of debt, of not owing, even if we have not done or if we've sinned or we've done some things wrong. So today I want us to focus on two characters, and I'm just going to tell you a little bit about them. The first person is C.T. Vivian, and C.T. Vivian was a civil rights activist who was born in Missouri, and then he eventually moved to Nashville. His vocation was a minister, and as a minister, he moves to Asheville and becomes very much engaged in the civil rights movement. He worked for voting, he fought for voting rights, he worked as a freedom rider. And in voting rights, there was a scene that I saw where he was punched in the face. He laid on the ground for a moment, he gets up, and he continues to talk to the people who punched him in the face. As a freedom rider, he would travel to southern cities, to the different bus stations, buses with white people and black people, to try to integrate those systems, which were very much segregated at that point. And he was jailed in Jackson, Mississippi for his work with the Freedom Riders. He died on Friday. Eventually, he moves to Atlanta and creates a business that works on diversity and helping people realize and reflect on how races lived in the United States, and he lived a very full life. He lived to be 95 years old. So he died, and I think his life is a great reflection of someone who lived this verse and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. The fact that he still loved people, he loved humanity, even though he was beat and even though he was disrespected because of the color of his skin, to me is a great example of this verse. The next person is John Lewis, and you probably have seen the news and seen a lot of people talking about John Lewis. Well, John Lewis was born in Troy, Alabama, to sharecroppers. And that means that they just worked the land and then they paid for their survival from the work that they did off the land. My family was sharecroppers as well. And so my grandmother would grow cotton and then she would pay her rent with that particular cotton to a family, to a white family. And her children would help her would help her pick cotton. So my dad would pick cotton as well. And so John Lewis he grew up in Alabama, which was very much a segregated state, and he gets active in the civil rights movement. During his activity, he becomes a freedom rider. He works closely with Martin Luther King. He is crossing the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama, and he gets hit in the head, and his skull is cracked. He's beaten. He's arrested 40 times. As a freedom rider, he was in Rock Hill, South Carolina, and there was a guy who beat him to a pulp and he took it and they were part of this nonviolent resistance group, and so they never retaliated, uh, they never punched back, they never hit back. They had their focus on a goal of trying to make our country better in terms of living out its motto of equality and democracy for all, and that's what his goal was. And so he never got waylaid by all of the jeers or the punches that came at him. John Lewis died at the age of 80 today. And so, as I reflect on John Lewis, there's a story of a guy in Rock Hill who, when he gets older, decides that he wants to apologize to John Lewis for assaulting him. And John Lewis actually accepts this guy's apology, and they go on the speaking circuit together and talk about the power of forgiveness. So, as you think about the stories of these two gentlemen, and as you look at pictures of them as they roll across your screen, I want you to think about how they reflect this Bible verse. Talk about it with your sister or brother or your parents. How do Vivian and Lewis reflect and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors? And also, I want you to think about how you've experienced Jubilee. Where have you been forgiven, and what did that feel like? So I hope you have a great week, and thanks for listening. See you soon, I hope. Bye bye.